The text on Maya's phone didn't just break her heart, it reconfigured her entire reality. It read, "The reservation is under Miller, 8 p.m. Bring the silk." The sender was Julian Architect, a contact name Caleb had created with meticulous, mocking care. Because Julian wasn't an architect designing high-rises in downtown Chicago, Julian was Julianne Caleb's 25-year-old junior associate, and the silk wasn't a blueprint. It was a slip dress Maya had bought for her own anniversary 3 months ago, one that had mysteriously gone missing from their master closet. Maya sat on the edge of their restoration hardware bed, the heavy linen sheets cool against her palms. Outside, the autumn wind whipped through the gold and crimson canopy of their affluent suburban neighborhood, sending dead leaves scratching against the triple-paned glass. For 7 years, she had built a life here with Caleb. She had supported him through 3 career pivots, managed the grueling logistics of his corporate ascent, and poured her own inheritance into the down payment on this very house. And now she was holding the digital receipt of her own obsolescence. She didn't cry. The betrayal was too vast for tears, a cold wave that instantly numbed her nerve endings. Instead, she looked at the time, 6:15 p.m. Caleb was supposedly at a networking dinner in the city. Julianne's apartment was a high-tech high-rise in West Loop. Maya stood up, her movements mechanical, and walked into Caleb's pristine home office. She knew his passwords. He prided himself on transparency as a form of camouflage. Within 10 minutes, she didn't just find emails, she found an entire parallel universe. She found flight itineraries to Miami, receipts for Cartier bracelets she'd never worn, and a hidden folder on his cloud drive filled with videos. But as she clicked through the digital wreckage of her marriage, she found something else. Something Caleb didn't know she would ever look for. A sharp, cruel smile touched Maya's lips. The betrayal was gross, yes, but the retaliation would be art. She closed the laptop, dressed in a sharp, tailored black suit, and drove into the bleeding neon lights of the Chicago skyline. Julianne's apartment smelled of expensive eucalyptus candles and the metallic tong of new money. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the interstate, a glittering river of white and red headlights. Caleb was already there, pouring 2 glasses of a heavy oak-aged Cabernet. He was 36, with the kind of sharp, symmetrical jawline and perfectly tailored posture that made people trust him with their money. He looked entirely at ease in his infidelity. "To new developments," Caleb murmured, handing a glass to Julianne as she stepped out of the bedroom. She was wearing the silk dress. It clung to her curves, a deep emerald green that made her pale skin look luminous. She smiled, a predatory, youthful expression that carried no guilt, no hesitation. "I think the new developments are going to be very lucrative," she said, her voice a low purr. Caleb didn't wait. He set his wine glass down on the marble island with a soft clink and pulled her into him. His hands, usually so deliberate and controlled, were frantic as they gripped her hips, bunching the smooth green silk upward. He pressed her back against the cool stone of the counter, his mouth crashing onto hers with a hunger he hadn't shown Maya in years. Julianne gasped into his mouth, her fingers tangling in his thick, dark hair. She arched her back, urging him closer, her thighs parting instinctively as his knee slid between them. The contrast of the cold marble against her skin and the intense heat of his body made her shiver. "God, you're reckless," Julianne whispered, her breath hitching as Caleb's lips moved down her jawline, biting softly at the sensitive skin of her neck. "I'm tired of being careful," Caleb growled against her skin. He reached behind her, his fingers finding the delicate zipper of the dress. With a sharp, fluid motion, he pulled it down. The silk pooled around her waist, exposing her breasts to the dim, ambient light of the city below. He looked at her, his eyes dark with a possessive, consuming lust. He cupped her fullness, his thumbs rough against her nipples, eliciting a sharp moan that echoed in the quiet apartment. He lifted her icily, setting her fully onto the counter, scattering a stack of architectural magazines to the floor. Julianne wrapped her legs tightly around his waist, pulling him into the cradle of her thighs. She unbuckled his belt with practiced efficiency, her fingers trembling slightly with the urgency of the moment. When he freed himself, she let out a low, ragged breath, feeling the heavy, pulsing heat of him against her. Caleb didn't ease into it. Driven by the taboo, by the sheer rush of his own deception, he drove deep inside her with a fierce, heavy thrust. Julianne cried out, her head falling back, her eyes closing as the intense sensation rippled through her. He gripped the edge of the marble counter, his forearm veins bulging as he established a hard, unyielding rhythm. The sounds of their passion filled the room, the wet, rhythmic friction of their bodies, the ragged breathing, the sharp, desperate gasps of pleasure. Every thrust was a deliberate assertion of Caleb's freedom, a visceral rejection of the domestic life he felt trapped in. Julianne clung to him, her fingernails digging deep into his shoulders, leaving angry red marks as he took her harder, faster, pushing her to the absolute brink. "Caleb, please!" she cried out, her voice straining as the tension built rapidly within her. He didn't slow down. He watched her face contort with pleasure, a smug sense of power washing over him. He accelerated, his movements becoming wild, almost feral, until Julianne shuddered violently, her body locking up as a powerful orgasm crashed over her. Moments later, with a low, guttural roar, Caleb threw his head back and emptied himself into her, his entire body trembling with the release. They stayed like that for several minutes, chests heaving, the city lights painting their sweat-sheened skin in shades of blue and amber. It was a scene of perfect, unadulterated indulgence. And that was exactly when the front door clicked open. Caleb pulled away instantly, his face draining of color. Julianne scrambled backward on the counter, frantically pulling the emerald silk up to cover her chest. Maya walked into the apartment with a slow, deliberate grace. She didn't look shocked. She didn't look angry. She looked like an executive entering a boardroom for a presentation she had spent months preparing. She was holding a manila folder in one hand and a digital camera in the other. "You really should lock the door when you're using my real estate investments," Caleb, Maya said, her voice smooth and terrifyingly calm. "After all, I co-signed the lease on this corporate apartment." Caleb was frantically pulling his pants up, his hands shaking as he zipped them. "Maya, what the hell are you doing here? How did I find out?" Maya smiled, a cold, empty expression. "You left your tablet synced to the home network. You're a brilliant strategist in the office, Caleb, but you're incredibly sloppy in your personal life. I suppose arrogance makes people blind." Julianne had slid off the counter, attempting to adjust her dress with some semblance of dignity, though her shaking hands betrayed her terror. "Mrs. Miller, please, this isn't—" "Be quiet, Julianne," Maya interrupted, not even looking at her. "The adults are speaking." Caleb stepped in front of Julianne, trying to regain his composure, trying to tap into the charm that had salvaged dozens of failing corporate deals. "Maya, listen to me. It's not what it looks like. We've been under a lot of stress. The marriage, we've been drifting. This was a mistake." A momentary lapse in judgment. "A momentary lapse?" Maya chuckled, a sound that made Caleb's stomach drop. "A lapse that includes a trip to Cometio last month? A lapse that involves $40,000 withdrawn from our joint savings for a diamond tennis bracelet? A lapse that involves you transferring 3 major clients from my father's firm to your new boutique agency?" Caleb stiffened. The charm vanished, replaced by a defensive, ugly sneer. "Is that what this is about? Money? The firm? Let's be honest, Maya, you haven't looked at me the way she does in years. You became a roommate, a critic. I built that business. I deserve to be happy." "You built it?" Maya walked over to the dining table and dropped the manila folder onto the dark wood. Thud. "Open it." Caleb hesitated, then stepped forward and flipped the folder open. Inside were pages of financial statements, wire transfers, and offshore account records. His eyes scanned the numbers, and his face went from pale to completely ash gray. "What is this?" he whispered. "That is the paper trail of the last 18 months, Maya said, leaning against the back of a chair. "While you were busy exploring Julienne's anatomy and plotting how to divorce me without losing your shirt, I was doing some exploring of my own. I found the shell companies, Caleb. I found the offshore accounts in the Caymans where you've been funneling your clients. Retainer fees to avoid paying taxes and to hide assets from me in the event of a split." Caleb's breath caught. "Maya, if you take this to a divorce court—" "Oh, I'm not taking this to a divorce court," Maya said softly. "That would take too long. And honestly, a judge would only take half. I don't want half, Caleb. I want everything." Julienne looked between the two of them, realizing the water she had stepped into was far deeper than she could survive. "Caleb, what is she talking about?" "Shut up," Caleb snapped at her, his composure entirely shattered. He looked back at Maya, his eyes desperate. "What do you want, Maya?" "Name your price. We can settle this quietly. A post-nuptial agreement. Whatever you want." "I've already taken it," Maya said. She took her phone out and pressed a button. A video began to play on the apartment's massive smart TV. It wasn't a video of Caleb and Julienne. It was a live feed of Caleb's proprietary server room at his firm. Two men in dark suits were systematically removing hard drives and packing them into secure cases. "That's my life's work," Caleb choked out, lunging toward the TV as if he could stop it. "That's trade secrets. That's intellectual property. You can't just steal that." "I didn't steal it," Maya said, her voice dropping an octave, becoming ice. "The men in those suits aren't private investigators, Caleb. They are federal agents from the Internal Revenue Service and the SEC. I didn't file for divorce today. I filed a whistleblower report with full documentation." Caleb collapsed against the dining table, his legs completely giving out. "You ruined us," he breathed. "You ruined the firm. You ruined our assets. If I go down, you go down too. It's marital property." "No, it isn't," Maya replied smoothly. "Because 2 weeks ago, you signed the restructuring paperwork for the firm, giving me 51% controlling interest as a tax strategy. A strategy you came up with, remember? To shield yourself from liability. You wanted a scapegoat if things went wrong. But because I own the majority, and because I am the whistleblower cooperating with the federal government, I am granted full immunity and a percentage of the recovered assets as a reward." She walked over to Caleb, standing so close he could smell her familiar perfume, the one he used to love, the one that now smelled like a funeral. "You thought you were playing a game against a housewife," Maya whispered, tilting his chin up with one finger. "But you forgot who taught you how to play. Goodbye, Caleb." She turned on her heel and walked toward the door. As her hand touched the handle, she paused and looked back at Julienne, who was shivering in the corner, clutching the stolen emerald dress to her chest. "By the way, Julienne," Maya said with a polite smile, "the dress looks terrible on you. Green was never your color." The door clicked shut behind her. The rain began to fall as Maya stepped out onto the streets of Chicago. She breathed in the cool, damp air, feeling a profound sense of lightness that she hadn't felt in years. The betrayal had been agonizing, a deep, jagged wound to her pride and her heart. But the execution of her plan had been a masterclass in precision. She got into her car, started the engine, and pulled out into the traffic. Her phone buzzed on the dashboard. It was a text from an unknown number. She tapped the screen to open it. "The assets have been transferred to the Swiss account as requested. The feds will find exactly what we left for them. Caleb is finished. See you in Paris next week?" Maya smiled, a genuine, warm smile this time. She deleted the text, threw the burner phone out the window into a storm drain as she crossed the bridge, and accelerated toward the airport. Caleb thought he was the architect. Julienne thought she was the prize. But the entire time, they had just been pieces on a board, moved by someone who knew exactly how the game would end.